Hi, everybody. I'm here downtown Los Angeles at the Inner City Law Center with Greg Spiegel. And I need you to stop what you're doing and pay some attention. You know, I'm going to be honest here. I originally did a video when this conversation came up a while back with Kerry from the Hollywood Business District, and I thought this community care ordinance was so stupid that it wouldn't even come up for vote. I'm just being candid with you. Now it's up to the city council, and they're like, you know, talking about it and voting about it, and it's really, really stupid. So briefly, could you give us a little history of the community care ordinance and what's going on?
Right, so you're not alone in thinking this should have not got this far. It's kind of an outlandish proposal. It comes out of some affluent single-family communities in Granada Hills, Pacific Palisades, that had some what they thought were group homes in their neighborhood. Essentially people they didn't want in their neighborhood, too much parking, too much noise. And so the ordinance, this attempt started in 2007, and they talked about targeting sober living homes and wanted to get rid of it. But right away, the city attorney said, hey, you can't target sober living homes because those are people with disabilities and that would be a fair housing violation. So instead, what we're gonna do is have something that applies more broadly and doesn't target anybody. So they came up with something that said, if you have more than one lease in a home in a single family neighborhood, that's a boarding house, and that will be illegal in these areas. So in a way, they're trying to get people who have to share housing, low-income people, people with disabilities, and move them out of their neighborhoods and into multifamily neighborhoods and lower income neighborhoods.
And this affects people how?
So it would, anybody who's sharing housing, so these are two single mothers with kids who share housing to pay the rent, or people with disabilities who need to share in order to stay independent, not have to live in an institution, they share housing. So they each have their own lease in the housing. That's more than one lease. Those are multiple leases. It suddenly becomes a boarding house, which is illegal in 85% of residential zone Los Angeles. So that housing becomes illegal and they have to leave it. So they become homeless in their neighborhoods. Right. So instead of really cleaning up the neighborhood, they're actually putting people out in the street.
Right.
Because
in your neighborhood.
Right. And people who are homeless tend to stay homeless in the neighborhood that they're in. They don't go to a different neighborhood to be homeless. And then any housing that's created is going to be consolidated and concentrated in already dense neighborhoods where there's multifamily housing, where there's children, so it's not protecting children. And so more homelessness in all these neighborhoods and more concentration of housing in other neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods.
Now, we are, you know, we're in an economy now where more and more people need to share housing.
Absolutely.
And as many of you that follow me know that I scream real loud about the silver tsunami. The baby boomers that are, you know, at the older and have lost, you know, here I am, I'm 51 years old. I've lost everything. I don't have,
that's right,
you know, chances of me retiring. Ha!
Right, people on fixed income.
Exactly. Right. So you know, you're going to shared housing is huge in the senior community.
That's right. And there's no exemption for seniors. There's no exemption for anybody for whatever reason. It's just the fact that they're sharing and they would need more than one lease to protect their rights. You need your own lease. So if somebody else acts up, you don't have to pay the consequences. Right. Well, just by having multiple leases, that becomes a boarding house, and it will be illegal in 85% of residentially zoned LA. And
you know, it affects in different areas. As many of you also know, I have 18 years sober, and you know, the sober living homes are so important. You know, everybody deserves a second and a third chance, and I'm living proof that people recover. I mean, if you saw me homeless on Hollywood Boulevard, you would have crossed the street. So we were talking earlier about a homeless veterans program, New Directions, that would be illegal.
Yes.
So these are female veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and our heroes.
Who've done everything
and because of this law, they're now going to be back out on the streets.
And this is the problem with this ordinance too, is it doesn't distinguish between bad actors and good actors. People
you beat me to it.
Yeah. So New Directions is a great neighbor.
Yeah.
They're neighbors. So they have a single family home that 6 formerly homeless veteran women occupy, and their neighbors bring them cookies, and they're a part of their community, a part of their neighborhood. Well, 6 people, 6 leases. They have to have their own leases because New Directions believes in people being independent, but also their funding requires that each person have a separate lease. So they can't comply with this. Illegal. Wiped out. However, The bad operator down the street who really doesn't care about having each person on a separate lease, doesn't have funding that limits them, they can put 30 people on one lease and comply with this law.
And it's not just a homeless community. I mean, if you're college roommates.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Student
Now
housing.
you have one lease and the one person screws up, you're evicted.
That's right.
Because, you didn't have separate leases. So, I mean, it really is just dumb all the way around.
As well as the retired person who has the house that's renting to two seniors to make it affordable for their mortgage payment. Now, where do they get that income? Because,
So now I got to put you on the spot a little bit, is that, I know of situations, and there's in every industry and vocation and sector, there's people that take advantage, across the board. And majority of people are good. Yeah. But I know, and it's growing in this economy, of people starting these homes and actually taking people's money that are disabled or homeless or whatever. And it's horrible conditions, horrible situations, but they can't do anything because they're so low income. So there has to be some kind of governance, as you said,
Yeah. So there's already laws. There's nuisance laws and code enforcement that the city can enforce and should. However, they're not putting any resources into that. So that's kind of going unenforced, and that's why these problems are going on. But any effort should distinguish the bad actors, the ones who are exploiting the tenants and exploiting people with disabilities, and the good actors like New Directions. This won't distinguish it. In fact, the good actors are much more likely to run afoul because they're going to have separate leases. So what we really need is nuisance enforcement, code enforcement in these single-family homes. And we have proposal and alternatives to do that. We have a proposal for tightening up the nuisance enforcement so that if there's a residence that has a nuisance, to shorten the timeline for compliance so it can be fixed, and for the city creating a task force so the agencies can work together to solve these problems. Right now, the city is doing zero on enforcing residential nuisances. Zero. They don't do anything. No wonder there's a problem.
All right. Yeah. All right. How many people estimate that this will affect?
Well, that's a really hard number to go.
Because you're talking college roommates to seniors to families, sober living to disabled to veterans.
People who don't even want to go on record as sharing, right? Because it could be compromised. So what we know is from a census from 2010, I think, is that there's about 50,000 families in the city of Los Angeles who are sharing single-family homes. So that's 50,000 families that are sharing. So they should have multiple leases. They would all be impacted by that. Then there's supportive housing where people are sharing for people who are formerly homeless. They could be impacted, and such as like the New Directions thing. People with disabilities who are sharing. So there are thousands and thousands of people who are going to be impacted, who are living in housing that's functioning perfectly well, that are going to become illegal.
Okay, but there is good news, and the good news is you're going to go and take action. If you're in LA County, there's a link right now that is up on the United Way website.
It's www.stopccfo.org.
Right, and the link right now is going to actually take you to where a letter is already populated. So you just put in your info and hit send, and it goes to the city council members. Because we got to stop. I mean, it's already come up for a vote. It was actually going to be this week. I mean, that's how it could have passed this week. And for whatever reason it was postponed, so now we got a little bit of a time. So let your voice be heard. Now maybe you don't work in homeless services, and maybe you don't work in recovery or social services or veterans and all that. I get that, but it's going to affect your neighborhood, whether you're in Northridge or Van Nuys or in some place in LA County. It's crazy. So speak up.
And it will make a difference. We're hearing the council officers aren't strongly supporting this. If they hear from enough of their constituents, they will back away from this.
Right. So please, thank you very much for taking your time. And all the information will be in this post. We're going to try to do a couple more interviews as we get closer. But I'm really, this is a dumb law that, I'm just being candid. This is dumb, and we need to be smart about it because this dumb law could have passed this week. And so now speak up and let your voice be heard.